a shadow meeting in the Kremlin. Putin and Iran's top nuclear advisor talk behind closed doors, just weeks after US airstrikes rattled Tehran's core. Europe's threats, Iran's fury, and a nuclear snapback deadline loom. Is diplomacy still alive, or are we one misstep from all-out war? On July 20th, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a surprise meeting at the Kremlin with Ali Larijani, the top nuclear advisor to Iran's supreme leader. The unannounced discussion focused on Tehran's nuclear program as tensions continue to escalate across the Middle East. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov revealed the substance of the meeting, stating,
"Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin received Ali Larijani, Supreme Advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader in the Kremlin. On behalf of his leadership, the Iranian representative provided assessments of the escalated situation in the Middle East and around the Iranian nuclear program."
Moscow has a cordial relationship with Iran's clerical leadership and provides crucial backing for Tehran, but did not swing forcefully behind its partner even after the United States joined Israel's massive bombing campaign on Iran in June.
Putin expressed well-known positions aimed at stabilizing the situation in the region and a political settlement of the issues related to the Iranian nuclear program.
This meeting comes just days after Russia slammed reports from US news outlet Axios that suggested Putin had encouraged Iran to accept a deal with the United States to prevent uranium enrichment. Iran has consistently denied seeking nuclear weapons while defending what it calls its legitimate rights to peaceful atomic energy. The nuclear standoff has intensified dramatically since the United States withdrew from the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018. That landmark agreement, negotiated by China, France, Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, and Iran, had lifted sanctions on Tehran in exchange for strict limitations on its nuclear program. Iran has accused the United States of complicity in recent Israeli attacks that killed top Iranian military officials, nuclear scientists, and hundreds of civilians, with American forces also striking 3 major Iranian nuclear sites before a ceasefire took effect on June 24th. Tehran is pushing back hard against European efforts to restore international sanctions, with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi questioning the legal authority of Britain, France, and Germany to trigger punitive measures. In a strongly worded letter to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, Araghchi declared that
the abhorrent statement of the G7 foreign ministers, which include the E3, France, Germany, and Italy, foreign ministers on 1st July 2025, that we urge Iran to refrain from reconstituting its unjustified enrichment activities, is a clear indication that the E3 have relinquished their role as participants in the jcpoa by rejecting its most fundamental pillar, namely Iranian enrichment, and actively participating in its dangerous destruction through an unprovoked war of aggression right in the middle of diplomatic talks.
The Iranian foreign minister accused the 3 European nations of lacking any legal, political, and moral standing to invoke the mechanisms of the jcpoa and UN Resolution 2231 inches after what he characterized as their support for the Israeli-American war on Iran.
These admissions make the E3 liable for compensation and reparation to Iran and deprive them of any legal, moral, or political ground to opportunistically invoke the DRM. If anything, E3 leaders must be held to account in international criminal tribunals as defendants for complicity in war crimes and not claimants in the United Nations Security Council.
Despite these tensions, nuclear talks are moving forward. Iran's state television announced on July 20th that discussions with the European Troika will take place on July 25th in Istanbul, Turkey. Deputy Foreign Ministers Kazem Garibabadi and Majid Takht Ravanchi will represent Iran in these crucial negotiations with Britain, France, and Germany. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghi confirmed the talks are being held upon the E3's request, while Araghchi expressed confidence in Iran's position, stating,
"We are in a strong position and are pursuing our rights more firmly than before.
The stakes could not be higher. The three European countries have warned they will restore UN sanctions unless Iran reopens talks immediately and produces concrete results by the end of August. This snapback mechanism, part of UN Security Council Resolution 2231, would automatically reimpose all previous UN measures if no resolution to maintain sanctions relief is passed within 30 days. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is taking a starkly realistic approach to the looming crisis, warning the Iranian public to brace for the potential return of UN sanctions. In a bulletin published July 20th, the IRGC's daily outlet Sobhi Sadegh described the prospect of renewed sanctions as a multi-dimensional threat requiring immediate preparation. The publication called for a fundamental shift in government messaging, stating that
a change in the tone of policy from absolute hope-building to psychological readiness is essential.
The IRGC warned that activation of the UN snapback mechanism could carry severe legal, economic and social consequences for Iran. Iranian lawmakers are setting firm conditions for any return to negotiations. Parliament National Security Committee member Vahid Ahmadi outlined three specific demands in an interview with Didban Iran.
If the West expects Iran to come back to the negotiating table, it must first recognize and rectify the aggression committed against us. There must be international condemnation, a clear assessment of the damages, and credible guarantees that our sovereignty won't be violated again.
However, not all Iranian officials view the European threats as credible. Committee member Esmail Kosari dismissed the snapback threat as a psychological ploy, though he issued his warning about potential retaliation.
If the enemies move toward using force, they will undoubtedly face a firm and severe response. We will make important decisions and will not allow the security and authority of the Iranian nation to be undermined.
As these high-stakes negotiations approach, all parties appear to be positioning themselves for what could be a decisive moment in the long-running nuclear standoff. The talks scheduled for July 25th in Istanbul will test whether diplomacy can still provide a path forward or whether the region is heading toward an even deeper crisis.